18-year-old Luca stood at the edge of the Black Drin River, watching the crystal-clear water rush with a determined purpose. In a few days, he would be leaving Struga to study architecture in a distant city. He felt like the river itself, born from the ancient depths of Lake Ohrid, forced to find a new path through unfamiliar lands. He wondered if he could carry the spirit of his hometown within him, or if it would wash away the moment he crossed the city limits. His grandmother, Iskra, found him there, her footsteps light on the pavement. She held a worn leather-bound journal and a pen. She told him that Struga was not just a place of stone and water, but a living poem. She challenged him to visit the landmarks of their city one last time, not as a resident, but as a witness. She pressed the journal into his hands, insisting that he record the bones of the city before he left. Luca's first stop was the Miladinov brothers' house. The stark white walls and traditional timber frames stood as a testament to the poets who had once lived there. As he traced the lines of the architecture, he thought about how the brothers had preserved the Macedonian language through their songs and stories. He realized that buildings were more than shelter. They were vessels for a culture's voice. He sketched the symmetrical windows, feeling a spark of pride in his heritage. He moved toward the old bazaar, where the scent of freshly roasted coffee and grilled kebapi filled the air. The narrow streets were a mosaic of small shops and vibrant awnings. He watched the shopkeepers greet each other, a rhythmic social dance that had continued for centuries. He realized that the soul of the city wasn't just in its monuments, but in the casual, daily connections between its people. He wrote down the sounds of the morning, the clinking of spoons and the low hum of conversation. Seeking a moment of quiet, Luca entered the Church of St. George. The dim interior was cool and heavy with the scent of beeswax. He looked up at the intricate frescoes and the magnificent wood-carved iconostasis. The craftsmanship was staggering, representing years of patient, devoted labor. He understood then that greatness required time and a steady hand. He sat in a wooden pew, reflecting on the patience he would need for his own long journey ahead. By midday, he reached the Poetry Bridge, the heart of the city of poetry. He stood where the world's greatest bards had once recited their verses under the stars during the Struga poetry evenings. The bridge spanned the Drin like a handshake between the banks. Luca looked at the water flowing beneath him and felt the weight of the words that had been spoken here. He realized that to be from Struga was to be born into a conversation with the world. He walked to the shoreline where the river met the vast expanse of Lake Ohrid. The water was a deep, shimmering turquoise stretching toward the horizon until it met the mountains. He sat on a smooth pebble beach, watching the waves lap at the shore. The lake was the source, the silent mother of the river. He understood that no matter how far the river traveled, it was defined by the purity of its origin. As evening approached, Iskra met him back at the main bridge near the river's mouth. The city lights began to twinkle, reflecting in the water like fallen stars. They sat on a bench, the sound of the rushing Drin a constant, comforting backdrop. Iskra asked him what he had learned. Luca looked at his journal, now filled with sketches of windows, bridges, and the faces of neighbors. He told her he was no longer afraid of the distance. Iskra smiled and pointed to the bridge. She told him that a bridge's job is to connect two different worlds, but it must be anchored firmly on both sides to stand. She reminded him that his education would be the span, but his home would always be the foundation. She hugged him tightly, the smell of lavender and home clinging to her shawl. Luca felt the strength of his roots, realizing they were not holding him back, but pushing him forward. On the morning of his departure, Luca stood at the bus station, looking back at the city one last time. He touched the journal in his bag, a physical piece of Struga he was taking with him. He watched the Black Drin continue its tireless journey toward the sea, never losing its clarity. He stepped onto the bus, finally ready to flow into his own future, knowing that the rhythm of the river and the lines of the poetry bridge were etched forever in his soul.